Hannah was mistreated. She took it to the Lord. She was empty, and she took it to the Lord. So where do you go with your stuff? I'm not saying don't email a friend. That's why we're here together. We're stronger together than we are alone. But when you have anguish, and you have grief, you have turmoil, and you have emptiness, the only one who can answer you is the Lord. So as we say in my house, zip your lip, shut your pie hole, go to the Lord. So that thing I asked you to think about, what is it you're asking the Lord for? Because this is more than being persistent with prayer. This was a woman who was desperate for something that wasn't a child. Well, how do you know that? Because she gave the baby back to the Lord. That makes no sense. Let me ask you, what is it you're asking for? What are you desperate for God to give you, to bring you? What ministry or calling are you asking the Lord to grow inside of you? What is it you're waiting for? What is it? Anybody willing to share? What is it that you've been seeking months, weeks, years, decades for? What is it that you cry out for? What healing? What restoration of relationship? What is it?
Faith.
Faith? More faith? What about something tangible? What's just something you've been praying to the Lord about?
Play the guitar more.
Musical talent. Thank you. What are you crying out to the Lord for?
Get out of bed.
Be out of debt. All right, so let me ask you this. You wake up tomorrow,
How about his wisdom?
wisdom. That would be a good one. Solomon asked for wisdom and got it. That's a gift. So you wake up in the morning, George, and you're like Stevie Ray Vaughan. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can play the guitar.
Real good.
And you wail with that for a few months. And the Lord says, George, remember that thing you asked me for? You told me you'd give it back. Hannah asked for a child, and everyone thinks she just needed a baby to hold, because don't babies give you unconditional love? And they give you esteem, and everyone comes to your baby shower, and you're the center of attention, and everyone sees your belly get big.
And they have stinky diapers. You have to feed them at 4 a.m.
Don't our young girls think that that's the solution to their problems? Let's just have a baby. That's not what Hannah wanted. How do you know? Because she gave him back. Well, what did she want then? She wanted the Lord. She wanted the Lord, because the only sign of God in her life would be a baby. Because back then, if you had no children, you were considered cursed of the Lord. It happened. It happened to women. So Hannah needed the Lord. He didn't need her to solve her problems. She just wanted to know he was there. She even said, Lord, if you just would remember me and not forget me. She felt forgotten. She said, if you just give me a baby, because that's how everyone will know that you are with me, that I have not fallen out of your grace. The name Hannah means grace. She needed to know God's grace was with her. She needed to know he was there, that she was worthy of him. The gift was just a sign for others. And so she got her baby. And you think, oh, she's not giving this baby back. Oh, yes, she did. His name was Samuel. And he was weaned and was able to be cared for by another. She marched him right up to the temple, back to Eli that had prayed over her and said, remember me? Here's the child that the Lord is going to use. Let me ask you, when God gives you that thing you've been praying for, can you give it back? Because this morning God says, I don't want you to seek me for my gifts. I don't care if it's ministry, healing, prophecy, evangelism, church growth and leadership. I don't care. Would you give it back? Are you seeking God for him or for his gifts? So even though Hannah taught us how to keep our mouth shut in adversity, seek the Lord for everything, pour out our heart before him, the message doesn't stop there. When God answers you, and you've been able to hold that gift for a while, what do you want more? His gift or the giver?
Giver.
That's what Hannah teaches us. She was desperate for God. And to know that he had his hand of grace upon her. It wasn't anything about the baby. And maybe you're thinking right now, this is for everybody but me. I've prayed for this thing. I'll pray for other people's miracle, but my miracle is just not coming. And that's how Hannah felt. She felt forgotten by God. And I know all of us feel that way sometimes. Oh, this miracle's for somebody else. It's not for me. Yeah, it is. Are you so special that God turns his face from you? No. You're just like the rest of us. Desperate for God's grace. In need of his grace. God will answer you too.
Amen.
Pour it out before him and quit sharing it with everybody else. Go to God for what you need from God. You can't get it from others. Not only that, not only give it to you, they will tear you down. Penny was just satisfied to rip her up. That's you this morning. Pour it out to God. Let him know. Yell, scream. You can do that. Hannah looked like a drunken maniac at the altar. The priest said, "What are you doing, woman? Get rid of your wine." She's like, I'm in misery. And so he said, he didn't even ask her what was your prayer. He just said, the Lord grant your prayer. So the Lord visited her. It still took action on Hannah's part. Won't go there. 9 months later, there's a baby. A year after that, or so, whatever it takes to wean a child. 3 months is long enough for me.
Yes.
She took him back to the Lord. Now you're like, what kind of evil woman is that? She went back every year and visited. Don't you think that broke her up? But he was growing in the house of God. He became the greatest prophet of that time and brought people back to the Lord. Samuel means, because I asked the Lord for him. She went on to have 5 other kids, so don't feel bad for Hannah. Okay? And I'm thinking, when Penny's children were it trickles down. So if mom is like that, you can imagine those were just wonderful kids, right? Who do you think then, in her older age, received the glory of childbearing? Hannah did, in her late age. It's an amazing thing. You know, sometimes we just want to strike against the trouble in our life as though God's forgotten us. But if you carefully read 1 Samuel, it says, the Lord shut her womb. She wasn't just not doing it right. The Lord shut her womb. Why? He loved her so much. He wanted it to be a time when it would bring her glory. And he wanted it to be a time when it had only come from him. Some of the delay of prayers being answered is only because the Lord is waiting for the right time. It's not that the devil's stopping you. The Lord shut her womb. So don't always curse the dark side for your situation. The Lord does not send evil. He does not send evil. But he does sometimes stop the timing of answered prayer for his timing. And Hannah waited. And she poured it out. She went only to the Lord because he's the only one that could have answered that. But she was desperate for him, not for the gift.